Well, firstly, good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this break free from Oracle webinar. My name is Damien Coyle. I'm a strategic account exec with EDB. I'm also joined by Simon Anthony. Simon's a pre-sales consultant with EDB and has many years of Oracle experience behind his belt. Before we start, I just want to go through a few housekeeping items. The presentation is being recorded, so the recording and the slides will be available after the broadcast. The lines are currently muted. If you have a question, please feel free to submit it in the question panel. We expect the presentation to last for circa 35 to 40 minutes today, so we'll allow any extra time for Q&A. If we don't have time to address all the questions, we'll follow up by posting anyone has answered questions in our website along with the answers. So this is today's agenda, and you'll see in the top left of the screen the new refreshed EDB logo, and that made its debut at the Postgres Vision event on the 23rd, 24th of June recently, and we had circa 4,000 attendees at the virtual event. And some of the descriptive words used to describe the logo are assuredness, and that's because we're very confident in our abilities. We also are very honest, we're very sort of pragmatic about the way we do business, and we're also perceived to be a challenger. And that's really the focus of today's seminar. We really want to challenge the status quo and suggest that there is a viable alternative to Oracle. So this is the basic agenda. We're going to kick off with some background to EDB. I appreciate some of you may be looking at EDB for the first time. Others may be more familiar with Postgres. So we'll talk a little bit about the background, what's Postgres as a community, why is it different to EDB, etc. We'll take a look at some of the challenges with Oracle and some of the practical obstacles when people are considering migration. We'll explain how we can help, and we'll summarize with next steps. And we'll do it as a tag team. So myself and Simon will conduct the presentation today. And as I say, we'll finish with questions at the end. So in terms of EDB as a company, you really have to go back to 1970 to sort of paint the picture of as we stand today. And that's when IBM research labs were commandeered with designing the first database. So in 1974, Michael Stonebreaker invented Ingress, and it was closely followed in the 70s with Oracle. And what you'll see is that IBM, Oracle, DB2, Ingress, Sybase, etc., they all come from the same stable. In 1986, Michael Stonebreaker, largely down to some of the limitations around the proprietary database world, commenced with the design of Postgres. And in 1996, we shipped the first commercial release of Postgres version 1.0. So EDB was founded in 2004, and as the name suggests, it's really about supercharging, in inverted commas, the Postgres SQL offerings. Today, we have circa 350 employees. We've got 4,000 global customers, and unofficially, I think we're just about to announce our 42nd consecutive quarter of growth. And you'll see that we're one of the few companies, in fact, the only company, open source provider who are on the Gartner Magic Quadrant, who look at completeness of vision and ability to execute. And you'll see that EDB, again, is in the Challenger Quadrant. So we're in very, very good company as it relates to some of that background. In terms of, a glimpse of some of our larger customers, as you can perhaps appreciate, they're in lots of various different sectors, from telecommunications to healthcare to manufacturing and so forth. But I just wanted to pick out sort of one or two interesting examples. Sony, for example, have an image rendering system which was co-developed with Google, which is quite an interesting use case. The CTO of Aon described that the move to replacing Oracle started because Postgres appeared sort of lurking in the shadows, in inverted commas, and people in various departments were starting out with a community version of Postgres, and the CTO was concerned that it needed to be controlled centrally, operating at scale with 24/7 support, and hence the relationship with Postgres was born. A bit nearer to home, one of our larger customers here in the UK is the London Stock Exchange. They've been on board a number of years now, and they've migrated 5 systems, clearinghouse systems, to EDB Postgres, and they're also embarking on a journey for 2 new applications built with the enterprise version of EDB. So right across the globe, we have some very sort of interesting customers and very interesting use cases, from things like traffic surveillance cameras to payment companies to applications for flight arrival status and so forth. So what problems are you facing? Well, EDB Postgres tends to help companies with 3 different areas of the business. Firstly, the world of migrations, and typically that's Oracle and migrations from Microsoft SQL Server. Second, the ability to build new applications from scratch to cope with the growing demands of a company's business. And thirdly, to help companies with the potential move to the world of cloud and containers. There tend to be the 3 specific use cases that we would hit. So why would you leave Oracle? It's a market leader. It's high in functionality. It's got a huge customer base, etc. I think the answer to that is it really comes down to mitigation and risk. On the one hand, Oracle's licensing is pretty high, and you'll see that as we move through the presentation, a lot of the capabilities are commoditized, with a price tag. The contract terms tend to be quite painful. So one is the cost side of the equation, but I think a lot of organizations are viewing open source as a way to take back control. And Gartner states that by 2023, 70% of new applications will be built on an open source platform. So it's about taking back control and reducing some of the lock-in risks. And thirdly, this whole area around cloud and replatforming, the whole world of containers and microservices, which really helps to increase the ability for agile development, and it helps with rapid application development, portability, scalability, and so forth. So what are the challenges then migrating from Oracle? They tend to fall into 3 different categories. 1, the business side of the equation, 2, the technical side, and 3, what I'd call the sort of productivity or skill set side of the equation. Migrations are hard. We have a range of implementations. Some are very easy migrations, some are far more complex, but generally migrations are hard and should not be dismissed as a trivial exercise. Also, we have to determine the degree of fit when we're assessing a migration. So if we find a site that's got extensive use of stored procedures, as an example, may not be necessarily the best fit. Organizations using things like Oracle Exadata or perhaps the Oracle Warehouse Builder adds to the complexity of the engagement. We've touched on briefly around the contract side of the things, but audits can be, hugely disruptive, involving sort of legal organizations and people on both sides of the equation. And obviously a lot of people are concerned, a lot of companies are concerned that if their developers and DBAs have invested heavily in Oracle skills, they don't want to waste that opportunity to build on those competencies. So how can EDB help? Well, from a high level, we have 2 flavors of our offering, the standard edition and the enterprise flavor. The standard edition supports capabilities like the Postgres Enterprise Manager, where you can look at the health of the database. It features 24/7 support. It supports backup and restore, failover management, and so forth. And it's really designed for those companies who want to take community to the next level and the next step, have a guarantee of 24/7 support, approaching 3 nines in terms of availability. The enterprise flavor of the product is really getting into the higher echelons of the high side of the Oracle functionality space. And that's for companies looking at sort of 4 nines availability and beyond, and more sort of stringent applications in terms of performance, developer productivity, DBA productivity, and so forth. So our proposition based on 300 migrations of converted people from Oracle to Postgres is based on our advanced server offering, and that's the layer that features the Oracle compatibility layer. We also have enhanced features for DBA, developer productivity, security, and performance. Some organizations with less complex Oracle requirements will actually go about a migration themselves and maybe have some ad hoc training or maybe some best practice consultancy from ourselves, right through to the EDB professionals who can guide people through the whole methodology. And the result of that is that we often see reduced costs of up to 80% over 3 years for a cost of ownership against Oracle. So that kind of sets the backdrop for today's discussion. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Simon, and we're going to take a slightly deeper dive into the Oracle compatibility offering. And then I'll take up the reins again after we've gone through some of the more technical slides to talk through some of the more cost of ownership arguments. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Simon.
Thank you, Damien. Yes, one of the major reasons for the founding of EDB was, of course, to have an enterprise class version of Postgres, and it only made sense to come from a position of alignment with the market leader at the time, Oracle, and allow you to run your Oracle code and migrate your databases, Oracle databases, to run on EDB Postgres. And Advanced Server was created for that purpose. It's not a fork of Postgres. It's a commercial grade edition of Postgres. EDB are a major contributor to the Postgres community, and some of the features that are in Advanced Server have made their way through to the community edition as well over the course of time. It has compliance with various standards as well, FIPS 142. There's a security technology implementation guide for it as well, and payments card industry certification. So it has the level of robustness and commercial credibility that is required for certification for enterprise class operations that is demanded in many areas, as Damien said earlier. Many financial institutions are customers of EDB Postgres, and these certifications are a requirement going forward. Next slide, please, Damien. So that's Advanced Server. It is a much more cost-effective alternative to Oracle, and with the move towards migrating towards open source, and also being able to run your database not just on premises but also in the cloud, it's a much more attractive proposition. It's highly compatible with Oracle, and as we've mentioned, it has enterprise class security, password aging and SQL injection features, prevention against the SQL injection attack, some of the enterprise class security features that have been added. And also, on top of standard Postgres, there is a variety of performance diagnostic features for monitoring the health of the database and improving its performance. For example, wait state monitoring and an index advisor. And of course, productivity features such as Enterprise Manager and various other tools that enable DBAs to do their job more effectively. Next slide, please, Damien. So it's important to note that the PL SQL support is very broadly compatible with Oracle PL SQL. Close on 90% of the language constructs available in EDB's implementation. It is native PL SQL support, so there's no translation layer or any kind of interpretation of that. It compiles and runs the PL SQL natively, so there is no performance penalty for running that. And the other side of the equation is applications connecting to databases that the application perceives as being an Oracle database. So the standard Oracle connection is the OCI, and that's also available to connect to an EDB Advanced Server, so that the migration of the whole application database infrastructure is possible with minimal disruption to the applications. So your existing infrastructure can stay as it is. There's no need to move to a new interconnect technology. And that also has benefits for the DBAs and developers. Obviously, the developers don't have to change the applications in that respect, and the DBAs can carry on administering the Oracle migrated objects in the way that they were before. And it's also a benefit that existing investment in technology, infrastructure, and people is still repaid, so that you can carry on developing code in PL/SQL. You can use it, the migration to advanced server as a transitory phase in an overall cost-saving exercise. That it's cheaper to migrate directly without the effort of rewriting the code. But as code is revisited and modified over the period following, or new code is developed, it can be developed in native Postgres PL/PG/SQL, but there's no imperative to refactor all the code and all the testing and upheaval that is going to entail. So overall, that option leads to lower costs and obviously reduces the risks inherent in having a requirement for a larger scale testing, and the expanded timescales that involves as well. Next slide, please, Damien. So overall, this is a view of the large and broad level of support for the Oracle migration that Advanced Server offers. We've touched on the fact that you can monitor wait events. There's broad level PL/SQL support that runs natively. Partitioning, which is a costed option on Oracle, is an advanced server, and it's Oracle-like partitioning as well. The Oracle data types obviously are supported. Many other platforms claiming Oracle compatibility will simply migrate the tables and data, and to some extent indexes and possibly constraints. Obviously, with Advanced Server, it's not just the data and tables, but also the PL/SQL that's able to be migrated, packages, stored procedures, functions, and triggers. As part of making the DBA's life easier as well, some familiar tools that are essential. To my mind, one obvious thing lacking in the Postgres world is a highly competent loader. So SQL Loader is possibly the daddy of all data loaders. And we have the EDB Loader, which is compatible with SQL Loader. And also, for those still writing and using SQL Plus, as well as obviously pSQL, the Postgres tool that can be used, any administration or scripts that need to be run can still be run in a SQL Plus compatible EDB Plus. Next slide, Damien, please. So here we have a broad overview of the level of support with Oracle. So you see that we've got support for Oracle specific functions, decode, NBL, and so forth. The PL/SQL support, as we mentioned, is very, very wide. There are very, very few things that aren't supported, and those, for example, pipeline functions, there are known standard workarounds. Those are quite obscure features in themselves. It's easy, also the case there's explicit transaction control available within the stored procedures as well, so autonomous transactions are supported. We have the tools, SQL Plus and SQL Load are compatible. And for the database administrators, the standard Oracle data dictionary views are there. They all views, the DBA views and the user views. Compatible with the Oracle wait events, system and session waits are also available, and a stats pack-like reporting method, which greatly eases the transition to the Postgres platform for administrators, as well as support for the language directly. There's large support for the standard RDBMS PL SQL packages and 7 of the util packages as well. Data types are supported, included blobs, clobs, the XML type, and the varchar2. And as we've mentioned, not only is OCI and PostgreSQL compatible drivers supported, but also as we move into the database as a service, software as a service arena, JDBC, ODBC, and .NET with the Oracle extensions are also supported. The features, we've kind of touched over most of those. Basically, as you'd write SQL in Oracle, it's supported on advanced server, including also materialized views, and the partitioning is compatible with the partitioning found on Oracle Enterprise Edition. In Advanced Server 12, the interval partitions also include median, distag, and compound trigger. Okay, next slide, please, Damien. So, as we've mentioned, many other systems claiming Oracle compatibility will migrate the schema and the data, and then it's intended that you run natively on the new platform, having converted all your code. With Advanced Server, that migration is made not just much easier technically and logistically, but also reduces a lot of the cost and risk in such a large-scale Big Bang approach, and allows a much more nuanced way to refactor a migration. And that's principally because not just the schema and data is migrated, but also the code. And having done that, you can carry on and continue to run your Oracle applications and developed solutions as though it were an Oracle database. And over the large number of migrations that we've done, we estimate that it's typically 75% saving over the other methods, and that the bulk of the cost of the migration, having done just migrating the schema and the data, that's just the starting point, and the vast majority of the cost is actually in then getting the application to work under the new technology. So if you migrate to another platform such as, I don't know, MySQL, MariaDB, there's very much more effort involved in getting your migrated application to run on that platform than just carrying on running it as though it was still Oracle, which is the possibility on Advanced Server. Over to you, Damien.
Are you covering, Simon, the migration tools?
Okay, yes, a quick whistle-stop tour of the migration tools and services. It's a multifaceted approach, and it starts with a migration portal, which is a free web-based tool accessible on the Enterprise DB website. It basically requires that you run a DDL extraction script on your application, and it will then assess the compatibility of that schema And he does this on the static analysis of the objects and gives a report on the extent of the migration, which objects migrated without issue, and where there are areas that need to be addressed. It's very much a first pass and a good starting point for considering the extent of work involved in the migration. The next, rather more sophisticated approach is to use the actual migration tool. So this is called MTK, and it's a tool that's available in the advanced server repositories, so be it one of the flavors of Linux in a Yum repository, or any of the other packaging mechanisms, or as the stack builder in Windows. So it's a command line tool. It can connect to both the Postgres and the Oracle database that's required to do the migration. So you have your Oracle database, which is the source database, and the Postgres database advanced server, which is the target database. The reason for the migration portal, obviously, is becoming apparent now, is that you don't have to set up an environment to do a migration. You can just really run the migration portal and get a good idea of the effort involved in the migration. With the toolkit, you obviously are performing the migration. So you have the source Oracle database and the target advanced server instance, and you can connect to the source Oracle database with either JDBC or OCI. And OCI is very much more efficient as a connection to an Oracle database than JDBC. So if there are large amounts of data involved, it's probably the preferred method. And then you can decide, there are many configuration options, but the broadest one is to distinguish between whether you're going to perform a migration on the entire schema and data, or just the table objects and data. So if it's a large volume of data, then you might want to do that in isolation before then doing the objects after that, so that you can repeatedly run through the migration and address any issues that are found. But data migration tends to be almost universally successful. Issues tend to occur in some obscure areas of triggers and some unusual esoteric PL/SQL functions that are usually the known solution for, but won't automatically migrate. Okay, so in summary, you need an Oracle, the Oracle instance you're going to migrate from, an EDB Postgres advanced server instance to migrate into. You run the toolkit, and you can connect with either OCI or JDBC. For more complex migrations, then we offer a professional services package migration assessment service. And this is also a very good option if you can't dedicate staff to do the migration, to document the migration, to develop a plan for the migration. So the professional service will run their migration assessment tool and develop a complete plan for the migration that will guarantee from start to end that the migration will do as it says. So the first part of that service is a report saying exactly what's required to do the migration. So that will be the migration toolkit settings and configurations to use to do that migration, any workarounds that are necessary, and any other aspects of that migration. But the series of reports will detail exactly what is required to be done. And an adjunct to that service then is if you would like us to also administer and perform the migration, then that can be done also. Next slide, please, Damien. So this is a quick overview of the portal. So it will show the number of objects, the percentage pass rate, and basically break it down into tables, index, constraints, synonyms, and so forth. You can then zoom into each of those areas and see the reports on what the migration portal has examined there as well. The engineering team is also able to look at those reports and give you advice in the pre-sales process as well. But it is an analysis by a standalone tool that's on the code, that's the DDL that's been extracted from the source database. The toolkit itself performs an actual migration. So if we go on to the next slide, please, Damien. So overall, we see the process as faceted in this particular way. So you have not just the schemas and data to migrate, but you also have your application code, APIs that have been developed against that, and also the infrastructure. So the infrastructure may include considerations that are required, such as the high availability that's analogous to data guard, and to some extent some of the functionality that RAC offers. And to do the migration, it's not just to stop at running the migration, migrating the code. The start of the process is to to do a migration assessment, to identify all the areas that will be affected, and then there is the operational considerations that come after that as well. Many applications and databases don't stand alone; they interact with a much wider environment and it's part of a whole, and also have to be administered. So there are tools that are required to carry on business as normal. There may be replication requirements for example, having replicas of databases for reporting purposes or other aspects. And indeed, the applications themselves need to interact in many cases still as though it were an Oracle database. So those interfaces need to be considered as part of that migration process as well. And of course, in those areas as well, we have professional services and many package services that are of aid in this migration effort. So all in all, the migration of your Oracle estate to advanced server and the migration towards an open source methodology, idiom, and philosophy is greatly eased and enhanced by advanced server and the EDB toolset.
Okay, thank you, Simon, for the technical exposition around the Oracle compatibility layer. So we're going to shift gears now and wrap up with 10 minutes or so on the commercial side of the equation and the advancement of the open source strategies. So if you look at the commercial aspect, EDB pricing is based on an annual subscription and typically would have a significantly lower cost per core than that of Oracle, and also feature more efficient database administration. I think the other element that's very important here is it's platform agnostic, and therefore you can run it in a on-premise environment, you can run it in a hybrid cloud, you can run it entirely in the cloud, and it's Postgres is exactly the same depending on which environment you run it in. And that's quite different if you look at, say, AWS with RDS, because they take a community version of Postgres and they make some changes to it to optimize the storage. So it's not absolutely sort of classic Postgres. And you'll see that, as we've alluded to before, many tools are bundled with the versions of the software, from failover to backup and restore, 24/7 support, and so forth. So it's really around ease of use and cost. So I'm just going to stop for 30 seconds whilst you perhaps absorb some of this slide, and I'll take you through some of the significant components. So this is a 3-year comparison of Oracle versus EDB Advanced Server, and it's on something of a modest x86 processor. So you'll see halfway down the screen that Oracle uses this hardware core factor, where they would apply a $1 rating if it was a significant machine, like say IBM's Power Architecture. But essentially on the Oracle side of the equation, you've got the enterprise edition price and all the sort of various components which are typically bundled with EDB, gives you a subtotal of $83,000 per core. That's halfway down the page. If you apply the x86 factor at 50 cents, you arrive at a unit price per core of 41,500. So if you look at the total cost of Oracle over that 3-year period, you're looking at 41k times 32 as 1.328 for the capital expenditure. And if you add on 292,160, which is effectively 22% of the license cost for maintenance, you arrive at a total cost of ownership of circa $2.24 million. On the right-hand side of the equation, we have EDB Postgres. As we said, it's a simpler model. The book price is 1990, so circa 2k per core, and that would give you an annual cost of 63,680 and compound over 3 years at just under 200,000 at 191040, as you can see at the bottom of the table. So quite significant on the basis of you're acquiring Oracle new and you're acquiring EDB Postgres new. But obviously the reality is that a lot of companies have already invested in Oracle, and therefore it is something of a sunk cost in certain instances. So if we just looked at the 3-year cost of ownership of Oracle versus EDB, and we're taking the pricing we've used on the previous slide, you can see the breakdown between perpetual license cost and 3 years maintenance. And even if you implied a very significant discount against that book price in the middle bar, you'll see that the Oracle discounted price would be 531k in dollars, and that would attract a 3 years maintenance charge of 350. So you're looking at circa 890,000 altogether for a 3-year cost of ownership argument. If you apply those same statistics to EDB Postgres, we're looking at circa 66k per year, which gives you a 3-year cost of 191,000. So there is huge savings if you look at it. You know, two companies buying Oracle new, buying EDB Postgres new, but also if you say, hey, we've already got Oracle, we want to migrate to EDB Postgres, and you've got that sunk cost, you could look at an argument to say, hey, it's circa 350k for the Oracle maintenance versus 191 to buy EDB Postgres from new, which comes complete with that 24/7 support, and also the additional elements, including things like the spatial sort of post GIS elements as well. So it's quite a significant story when we present that to the financial equation of some of the prospects and customers that we are typically engaged with. So in summary, we've got, as Simon alluded to, a fairly sort of proven process for those migrations. If it's fairly easy, organizations will opt for that sort of self-service approach themselves. But if they want to go down the EDB route, then we'd start with filling in a pre-sales questionnaire that details more elements around the Oracle estate in a specific customer. And then a little bit like peeling the layers of the onion, we move through to the migration portal, the migration toolkit, and every single round we get a very sort of clearer picture of what that Oracle estate looks like and the degree to which that estate can move fairly easily. And it culminates with what we call a DMAT, the Database Migration Assessment, and that's a proprietary piece of software from EDB that takes a very, very thorough look and produces quite an in-depth report with a cost justification plan for a successful execution of moving to an EDB estate. So we just wanted to wrap up with 3 or 4 slides on, what we'd call sort of various proof points to do with customer referenceability. Take a look at the Oracle ULA from a high level. Firstly, this is an example of one of our significant customers in the APJ region, and they currently have 28k employees across 80 branches. They offer retail banking and also private and commercial and so forth. And they had been using the Finacle Oracle application, and to move 500 cores of their 3,000 core estate has already saved them $800K. So if you extrapolate those numbers, assuming they go through and complete those 3,000 cores, you're looking at circa 4 million. So there's quite significant savings in this instance for an online transactional based system. And there are lots of references we've got as various proof points throughout the EDB company. I think the summary is that EDB is very easy to do business with, and most of the customers and prospects we talk to who are actively looking at migration away from Oracle suggest it's very difficult to do business with, and clearly to escape oneself from an unlimited license agreement requires meticulous preparation in terms of legal work and so forth, and that adds up to a lot of time and productivity. We maintain the EDB Postgres Advanced Server as a much simpler licensing model. Everything is bundling those options. It's 24/7 support, and there's no penalties for maintenance reduction or maintenance restart, or looking at various things to restrict that arrangement that one might have with EDB. So finally, this is a gentleman who has a lot of experience, ex-Oracle person who has experience of helping people escape from the Oracle ULA scenario, and clearly we can pass on some of these details if that is of interest after we depart from today's webinar. But it's really aimed at really helping companies extricate in a low risk, high return way from that Oracle exit strategy. So I guess in summary, and looking at the time, we're at sort of circa 45 minutes. Our recommended next steps would be, I'm not sure if we can do a lunch and learn right now with the COVID world, but the idea would be to see if we could work collaboratively and look at a deep dive on your next project, if that's appropriate to your situation. In the background, please feel free, as Simon suggested, to try the migration portal yourself. But if you do want to engage in more of a sort of collaborative approach around your Oracle estate, then we offer a degree of discovery exercises with all the associated methodologies to help people successfully migrate to EDB Postgres. So that's really concludes today's session. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you thought it thought-provoking, and perhaps raised a few ideas and suggestions that you can socialize internally offline. And I think we've probably got time for 2 or 3 questions from the chat line. Simon, are we able to look at any questions?
No questions so far, Damien. It looks like we have a set of happy campers.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's the case, then guys, well, we hope you've enjoyed this morning's webinar. Please feel free to reach out to either Simon and myself if you have any further questions. I hope you found it useful and illuminating, and enjoy the rest of your day. And that concludes this morning's webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.